Good afternoon and welcome to the 9th edition of the Monday Morning Pen Blank Makers series. I am Tim Cullen of Hooligan Georgia Pens, and today we are talking about a blank made by a company called Black Magic Pens out of Nashville. This is a striking blank, as you can see. And I paired it with something that kind of goes with the theme of the blank. What do I know about Black Magic Pens? Well, the owner, his name is Leonardo Divino. It goes by Leo. And by the way, they just had a new baby. He's a couple, maybe a month older or so. Cute little guy. And he is out of Nashville, Tennessee, originally from Chicago. And he has been into the pen thing for about 8 years now. He mostly does a lot of calligraphy and he's very good at it. You can go to his page and I'll link to his pages on this video at the end. But he's into the celestial color palettes, you know, the Milky Way stuff and things like that. And you can see it in this blank. By the way, I'm doing this video from my office desk upstairs because I'm trying to get a little bit better light for these videos so you can see the blanks better. I'm hoping that I succeed at that. But anyway, so yeah, he's into the whole cyberpunk, natural element, etc., you know, celestial color palettes. So I thought when I made this thing, if it turned out to be something like that, I would pair it with an appropriate clip to add some moons and stars in bronze. And it worked out pretty well. This is another blank that he sent me. And it's got, you know, I think he made it purposely for me because it's got some reds and blacks, and it's a striking blank. But the most notable thing about it is it's very long, 12 inches. Now, I went on his website, and most of the blanks that he's listed are 9-inch blanks, which is not a problem, but I hope he starts offering these 12-inch blanks for people who make custom pens, because when I was done with his pen, that's what was left. And that's a good thing, because you want to be able to have enough material. If I were, like I said in previous videos, if I were to make this pen an emperor size, or if I were to have a separate finial made out of this material, or if I were to use an overlay, I would have more than enough material with this extra piece to do all that work. Otherwise, I'm going to have to buy more than one blank. So let's get into this blank. What do I like about it? What do I think about it? Do I like the colors? And I absolutely like the colors. I almost thought this gave kind of like one of those rocks that you cut into sometimes at the like county fair, or when I was a kid, Knott's Berry Farm did that, and you don't know what's inside and you cut it open and you see all these waves of different kind of crystallized rock and stuff like that. And it's really got a pearlescent type of look to it with some, like, I want to say it's like glitter, but it almost comes off as like night stars. It looks like a crash of, you know, nebula, and I don't even know what the heck nebula means, but you know, it does look sort of celestial, and that's, if he was going for that, then he was very much successful in that. And I like the way that, you know, the color kind of sits heavy in some spots and then kind of lightens through as it goes along. And this was the very top of the blank. I think I took a little bit off, and I like this pearl kind of area right here, and it kind of bled into this theme that, you know, celestial. It would almost be like if you were traveling into the outer space and you left the atmosphere and kind of went into the outer space and you saw this kind of stuff. It kind of reminded me of that, so that's why I decided to keep that area. I could have used that part of that blank that had more of the concentrated celestial type colors in it, but I really like this pearlescent at the top, and I thought it gave it a very unique look. With that being said, the colors are really vibrant as well. I mean, as you can see, and there's some golds and blacks and blues and purples in this blank. It's just a really beautiful blank. So I haven't told you the name of this blank, and it's called the Dawn of Entropy, which I don't even know what the hell that means, but if you go on his website, he has a lot of like celestial names for his blanks. So he's hitting the mark on the theme, and like I said, it's a quite striking blank. But now let's get into what was it like to turn this blank. Well, a couple things, excuse me. I found this blank to be quite soft, and when I finished making the blank into a pen, I messaged him and I let him know, hey, you know, it all turned out great, but the blank I thought was quite soft. It was one of the softest blanks that I had ever used, and I've been making pens for over 15 years. And I found that when I had it on the lathe and I started to turn it, if there was any kind of distance that was longer distance, that it would almost flex and you would get kind of a flutter pattern in the cut. Now, I sharpen my tools before I cut every blank to make sure that I'm giving a very educated viewpoint on the way that I turn these. But I did find it a little bit soft, and his response was good. He's like, yeah, you know, it could have been that it was, you know, the humidity, because Nashville does get very humid, and it could be that the way that it's set, but it's not very common for his blanks, and that's fine. It didn't destroy the pen. It didn't do anything to hurt the pen. I just found it soft, and for people who want to use this blank, it could be very possible that when you get this blank, that will be the same issue. Now, like I said, it did not even affect the making of this pen at all. So besides the turning and it was soft, it threaded really well. You know, it threaded well, and for those who thread on the lathe, you're going to find that it threaded pretty well. I suppose that it might cut, being soft, that it might cut with taps and dies a little bit easier. I don't think it would tear out like some harder, or chip like some harder materials do. It was just hard enough to hold up really well, but soft enough that it machined well. There's a video that I have of turning it, and when I was turning all of it, it would come off in like really thick strings of plastic, which I'd never experienced before. Now, one of the other things that I do want to note as it got thinner in some areas, and especially this section, there was a little bit of see-through here, and not quite enough to want to polish the insides, but you can see where I usually thread the whole internal section, and then I cut it back to fit the nib, because I like a really tight fitting housing fit to my nibs. So as you can see, it doesn't take away from the look, but you can see that there are some areas that are a little see-through. But as far as threading, it threaded well. And you can see on the inside here that it threaded well. It didn't leave any burns, cuts, or anything like that. One of the things I thought I was going to encounter because of these little starry things right here was some pinholing, but I never did. And it really, you know, when I started to sand and polish it, it really, really is quite striking, as you can see this rolling blank where that, you know, looks like stardust or whatever. So it did a good job, and I was pretty happy with it. Okay, so my typical ending question. Oh, and just to let you know that I think I mentioned that these are $19 in the 9-inch form. So I would imagine that if he made 12-inch blanks, it would probably be somewhere around the cost of about $25, which I find that a bargain. I mean, that's a great deal. So if you had to buy two $19 blanks to make a pen this size that were in the same pattern or same name, it would be $40 to make a pen, and that's not that expensive. So it's still a good deal. Would I use his pen blanks? Absolutely. I will use more of them. I think I've said this and I'll say this again. I think most every pen blank maker has something to offer. There are some that I like better than others. There's some that I will not use, and there's some that, I'll use a couple of their blanks. And then there's some, like maybe Bob Dupress, that I'll use almost anything that guy makes, or even Hobble Creek. So most of the stuff that I've seen on his website, I would use. I would use his blanks, and most all of them. I like a lot of the color patterns, and I like a lot of the combinations. So he did a very good job, and I think he's got a future in this. And I think that if he keeps, working on his craft and developing his craft, I think that, if you're a pen maker that doesn't make blanks, he would be someone that I would definitely look at for future pens. All right. Next week, we are going to talk about this. It's almost a special edition. And let me tell you something, it's not for the faint of heart. This is a Blue Lapis by Tim Nguyen. My light just went off there, and I'm not going to change. So, all right, we'll see you later.